Hey, good morning, November 14th, 2023 here in Edmonton, Alberta. And just a quick update in case you don't live here. Normally we have a bunch of snow. Yes, the dreaded S word. And we did get a initial snowfall October 26th. I remember I was out of town and it has since melted. There's no snow left anymore for a while. And it's interesting because we're even seeing above zero temperatures, which at this time of year, it's not so typical. We are definitely in warmer weather. So, why am I giving you the weather forecast? I am here to talk about the Edmonton real estate housing market, but I wanted to talk to you about the weather because the weather always seems to impact our housing market. And so this week, when I talk to you, we are looking at this last 7 days compared to the week before in terms of current listings that are on the market for single family homes. Now, you'll see that we had a very minor change in the last 7 days. And over the last few weeks, if you've been following along, our inventory level has been dropping each week. This week, it went up by 2. So nothing too crazy. It just means that the new listings that have come on the market are offsetting whatever's having sold. Now, in November, we typically see sales get quite quiet. The activity on showings are a lot quieter as well. There are still buyers looking to buy. If you think about the interest rate holds, people still have holds from almost 120 days ago, and that rate was potentially lower depending on what they got. And so, if they're wanting to move in before Christmas, this is now the time. If they were to close today on a deal, like let's say they put an offer in and they went conditional with which is pending, it would take them till let's say the end of the month, and the quick possession is middle of December. So 2 weeks later, you have time to get in before Christmas. So it is still possible. You can see in St. Albert, Sherwood Park, Spruce Grove, and Beaumont. So the surrounding areas of Edmonton, very similar inventory level. Now, why do I talk about the suburban parts of Edmonton? In Edmonton, if you're not from here, St. Albert's only 10, 15 minutes away, let's say, from the West End. Whereas west to southeast is 20 to 30 minutes. So depending on where you are in the city, St. Albert is closer to you than Southeast Edmonton would be. Now, if you live in Southeast Edmonton or East Edmonton, you're only 15, 20 minutes away from Sherwood Park, even closer actually, versus going to the West End for another 30 minutes. Spruce Grove and Stony Plain, which is even further. Spruce Grove is about 15 minutes from the West End and obviously quite far from the East Side. If you're going to the university or working downtown, Spruce Grove is a bit of a drive. Now, St. Albert, just so you know, has a direct bus that goes from St. Albert into the city. So if you work downtown, a lot of people take the St. Albert transit going into Edmonton because Edmonton doesn't have transit actually that goes out to St. Albert or out to the suburbs, but St. Albert has that. Spruce Grove does not have a bus that comes into the city. Beaumont is Southeast Edmonton. Beaumont is literally right beside the Southeast Edmonton area. We're talking 5 minutes. So people have asked me, why do I cover those stats? It's because in Edmonton, everything is really close by. And so that's why I'm choosing to go in there. In Edmonton, we have hundreds of communities that if you're looking for community specific information, let me know. And what I'm planning to do is each week, I'm not just going to come live on Tuesdays to talk about the Edmonton real estate market. Thursdays, I'm going to talk about specific areas. So if you want to tune in on Thursdays or comment on this, I'll make sure to bring it up in my Thursday live to talk about neighborhood specific statistics in terms of what's going on in each neighborhood. Now, this week in Edmonton, going back to that, we had up pending sales about the same as we saw the week before. And you'll see in, again, the surrounding areas, they're all similar. So this activity level is, again, quite normal for November. And we're going to see this kind of, I think, just stay pretty stagnant. I have seen Edmonton numbers drop as low as 90 before in 1 week. And we'll probably see that over the weeks and months to come, is my guess. But I don't have a crystal ball. I'm just guessing that the activity will be slower. So what does that mean for you if you're a seller and you own a house in Edmonton? Is your equity dropping in value when the numbers drop like this? When we look at such a specific time and date of 1 week, that does not stipulate that your property value has dropped. Your property value is based off of, let's be honest, the last 90 days, and 60 days is the more accurate in terms of what's happened. What are buyers willing to pay for your house in the last 60 to 90 days? Now, we just went live last Friday with the market stats of what happened in October. So in that video, I talk about what's happened in all of October, so you can kind of see what's going on in the real estate market. At the end of the year, I will be discussing what's happened for the full year, and then you'll know, okay, did my value in the last year go up or down? If you own a house and you're not even thinking of selling, it's still important for you to know what the value of your house is worth, because that's one of the most expensive things you own. So it's just like watching the stock market. You want to see where your house value is at. And we are preparing for our clients the updates that we send out every week, so or every month, sorry, every year, letting them know what's happened in terms of sales, similar homes to them. You cannot compare a single family front attached double garage to a townhouse or a duplex, because that's not the same kind of property. Now, in the last 7 days in Edmonton, we saw sales drop quite substantially. If you can see, almost half. And that doesn't mean that sales have completely dropped. It just means pending sales were lower, and that's how much were removed. Maybe some of those pending sales fell apart. We've seen a lot of that this year, where offers come in, and then for whatever reason, maybe it's financing, maybe it's a change of mind, maybe whatever the case may be, they didn't finish the sale. So that's why you're seeing that. Now, if you take a look at last year compared to this year, you can see that, this number is very, like, again, last year was higher even compared to this past week. St. Albert, it's the same. Sherwood Park is the same. I'm going to double check the numbers because I have my 13-year-old that helps me with these numbers, and I'm pretty sure he's correct, but I'm just going to double check that the numbers for this is just single family home. This is not townhouses or condos or anything like that, because what I find is those markets are different, and even the average price is different when you're looking at single family homes versus that. So if we take a look at single family homes and we just look at what sold in this last 7 days, we are looking at 155 7 days back. So that number is not 83, it's 155 days in the last 7 days that sold. And then if we look at last year at this time, so last year at this time, I believe was very similar. Let me just pull up custom date range here. So 2022, November 7th to November 14th, we will see there was, actually 248 sales in the last 7 days, in that time period. So 155 versus 248, still quite a drastic drop. That's about half of what we saw last year. And am I alarmed about that? Not really. The market was adjusting itself from the prior year and years that we've had. Our market, I think the theme of 2023 was an adjustment year back to what our Edmonton real estate market is used to, which is quite slow. It moves consistently, and in theory, we usually follow Calgary's market. We're usually a few months behind, but they've actually stayed at the peak for quite some time. And I'm hearing rumors that things are starting to slow down there too now because of seasonal. Finally, they've been so busy that it hasn't been a drop for a long time. So if you take a look at the stats, you can't just look at the one stat for the week. You've got to consider everything that's happening, not just week to week, but also month to month and also the year. When we're looking at valuing your home, you're looking at the last 60 to 90 days. If you're a buyer, we're looking at the last 60 to 90 days of history to see what are buyers willing to pay. Because guess what? Market value is one thing, but the market value is stipulated by what a buyer is willing to pay and what a seller is willing to accept. So yes, there is the market stats of showing you the history of what buyers and sellers have come to agreement on, but there's also the reality of the situation itself of what is this seller willing to let their house go for and what is this buyer willing to pay for. It takes two people to come to a transaction. One person doesn't have one say over the other, especially in this market right now, which I consider a more balanced market, which means the sellers and the buyers equally have the ability to have that decision made. When we were in the peak market where it was like low inventory and high sales, the seller, the equity was higher because the seller could dictate the value of the price because there were so many buyers who wanted to pay more than whatever the value was so they could get the house, and the sellers just had to choose the best offer for them. So as a seller, your overall value is continuing. I would say in this last 12 months, it stayed consistent. But if you just bought last year, likely, without looking at your specific information, you probably dropped a little bit, if not stayed the same. So it's important to make sure that you're considering all the factors, because if you bought brand new build, you likely probably would have dropped in value. And why is that? Because the new builds right now are going on sale. I'm seeing a lot of incentives right now. It's November. They've got another month and a half to get all those final sales to get their quotas up for the year. And I'm seeing a lot of incentives. So your value, if you look at your value in December versus your value in May or June, is going to be different. Because if you look at June, you're counting the last few months of spring, and those are the stronger months to look at your value. And guess what? That's when the city of Edmonton looks at your value to assess your property value. So in a few months, you're going to get a property assessment based on the July amount. But don't forget, they don't do a comparative market analysis like realtors do. They have a formula. So if your market value is different, make sure to get a second opinion. I'm happy to give that to you, because sometimes they're overinflated in the new areas and undervalued in the older areas, but you don't want it to be overinflated. You'd rather have it underinflated, because that's all how much you pay for property taxes. So anyways, we will talk to you next Tuesday, and I will be back on Thursday to talk about community specific information.